Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's live event. Today, we'll be talking about the organizational project delivery journey, something we've been talking about for the past few webinars if you've been able to join us for those. But this one specifically, we'll be talking about stage 1 and stage 2 of that particular journey, transitioning from accidental to intentional. My name is Rachel Hentress. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at the PMO Squad, and it's great to have you here today. Lots of familiar faces, not faces, names in the chat. And I'm joined today by the CEO of the PMO Squad, Joe Puz. And today he'll be walking through exactly what I just said, the organizational project delivery journey, stage 1 to stage 2. And feel free if you have any questions throughout today's event, please just put them in the chat or the Q&A and we'll address those as we go or at the end. But would love to have your input along the way. So, Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your busy day to attend and hear what we have to say here. Some of the beginning slides here are a bit of a recap for anybody that's new to catch you up on what we presented in the past couple of sessions. We're talking about organizational project delivery. And what is that? Somebody in one of our last sessions said, how is that different than organizational project management? So for us, OPD, we like to call it OPD. It's a mouthful to say organizational project delivery. So OPD is a system dynamics-based approach to delivering projects throughout the organization. So key items we've highlighted here is it is system dynamics based. It's not just a random component or approach that's put together by our experience. There is a basis for it. Second, it's about delivering projects. It's not about managing projects. And then lastly, it's about the organization and not an individual project or not about PMOs or how they work. So that's the recap for OPD. We do have all of these recorded, so you're able to go back and look at those and catch up at the details we've provided in those also. But we call it a journey. So why is it a journey? Well, the key point here is organizations. Remember, this is about organizations. So organizations are at different stages of this journey. We have 5 stages in the journey. At the beginning, it's ad hoc, working its way through generating value. And there isn't a good or bad spot to be in. Where you are, where your company is where you are. I mean, it's fine to be where you are. What's important is to identify where do you want to be? And then what steps would you need to take to move through the stages of the journey to be able to get to that final destination? Not all companies need to get to generating value. Not all companies need to be doing strategic project delivery. Each company is unique. Each company's journey is unique. And we want to help you identify where you need to be in your journey so that you're successful. Right? So the journey is very much dependent on organizational capability. Too often we feel in our industry, the focus is on PMO maturity, and PMO maturity only measures the maturity of the PMO. It doesn't say how well can the organization deliver. We think that falls short of being able to get the organization to produce results. So this is the basis of what organizational project delivery is, and then what is the journey that comes into that. We had mentioned system dynamics, and some people may not be familiar with system dynamics. This comes from MIT. System dynamics was developed at MIT in the 1950s. And as we know, projects are change. Every project is a unique endeavor, therefore it didn't exist before. So it's a change of some kind that happens within the organization. Systems dynamics helps us understand, design, and manage that change. Using data and technology, it creates models so that all parts of the systems, right? We in the project management world get so caught up in what are we doing within our process, within our project, and within our people, that what we don't take into appreciation that is part of this journey is how are the other parts of the organization, how are the other parts of our culture, how are the other parts of macroeconomic conditions around the world. Everything impacts how we deliver projects. And the system dynamics allows us to bind the relationships between all different parts of the system and establish feedback loops so that we're aware of those and help us to be able to make adjustments as necessary. So at the basis of what we're doing within the journey, it's not just PMOs, right? It's not just project management that we're thinking about. So often we go into an organization. Oh, excuse me, I went back too far on that one. Go up. There we go. It's not about the PMO, right? We find other consulting firms or even within organizations before consultants come in to assist them, they're always trying to mature the PMO. They're always trying to improve the PMO processes. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, obviously we want the PMO to perform better. But what if a PMO has reached high maturity and any of the different maturity ratings that exist out there? If that's the case, what happens is the organization still may not be able to deliver, even though the PMO is very capable, because there are different systems in the organization that are at work that are providing feedback loops to the PMO. And if we're not understanding those, if we're not taking them in, if we're not reacting to those, we're limiting our capability as an organization to deliver. All right. So how do we know where companies are? We did some research. Our research report has been published, is out there, and it's free for anybody to be able to go download. But in our research, we asked, at what stage in the OPD journey is your organization? Remember, it's the organization as a whole. It's not the PMO. So drop in the chat what you all think where your organization is, right? You can just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't have to type in the whole word if you don't want to, but is your organization doing ad hoc project management, where we're going to talk about today? Are you standardized? Are you organizational? Have you hit strategic, and are you at generating value? A 0.5. Haven't even made it to ad hoc. You're ad hoc and you're ad hoc. So this is a 1.5678. Interesting. That's a good one, Nick. Ad hocs. So it looks like the folks that we have with us today, most of them probably align to what our results are here in the research, right? Over 50% of our respondents are either ad hoc or standardized. And then you can start seeing it's a lower distribution as you get across to organizational and strategic. So where you're at today is good. What we're going to be doing as we continue this webinar series today, we're going to talk about the transition from ad hoc to standardized, or in layman's terms, from accidental to intentional. And then the next one will be about moving from standardized to organizational, from organizational to strategic, so on and so forth. So we're going to go dig into each of these. Ad hoc-ish. I like that one. I don't know what that one means, but that's a good one. Thanks, Scott. So let's dig into it. So OPD journey, we talked about OPD, we talked about the journey, we talked about system dynamics. You've seen where the distribution is. Our distribution here today is, again, heavily weighted to the left within the ones and the twos. So what is that, right? So first of all, we've established some baseline criteria and then evaluate organizations to see where they are with the criteria. For instance, number 1, organizational structure related to delivering projects. If you're ad hoc in nature, there isn't any, right? So at this point, it's just about the organization. It's about individuals going out there and doing the work. Capability, right? Because we mentioned in the journey, you move right on the journey based on the capability of your organization. At ad hoc, the organization doesn't have any capability. It's all within the individuals who are leading projects. So there isn't a consistent way to go about doing the work. This reminds me of a story, right? And hopefully some of you can relate to this, especially the people who are working in ad hoc organizations today. Many, many years ago, when I had hair and it wasn't gray on my beard, an early job that I had, I was a systems consultant for a software company. And every day my job was to go, and it was software for car dealerships. So my job was to go to a car dealership and help them use the software better. And every once in a while, we would sell them a new package. And when we would sell that new package, I would help them implement the software. I was a software consultant. And one day, my boss, Dennis Dickinson, said, "Hey, Joe, how's your project going?" I was like, "Dennis, I have no idea what you're asking me. I don't know what a project is." And he explained to me project management and what we were doing by implementing the new software, training the folks on them and getting them to use it was called a project. In my career, I had never heard about it. At our organization, we didn't have anybody that had a role of project manager. So the capability of us implementing that new software package at the dealership, I didn't have process to follow. I didn't have templates to follow. I didn't have project managers to tap into. I didn't have a champion or a sponsor. There was nothing in place for me to use other than kind of common sense and just try to implement the software and do it the right way. That's ad hoc, right? I'm assuming some of you can relate to that and how that works today at your organization. Do you have a Dennis in your organization that's kind of said, go do that? And you're now going, okay, but how and what and how do I do that? Another key component to what we have within OPD Journey is organizational acceptance. So is the organization capable and have they accepted what we're going to be doing? And at ad hoc, no, there's no acceptance to project delivery in any formal way. I'm sure many of you have attended company meetings or you've attended industry events, and you'll hear some people talking about, hey, what project are you guys working on this year? And they just mean like some work. They don't mean formal project management, right? It's a thing that's being worked on. That's because there's no acceptance to project delivery yet or project management. It's all based on work getting done by individuals to go accomplish something. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality of organizations that are at this stage. Is there a collection of work in a portfolio so that we can understand the full piece of work that's at play? Not in ad hoc, right? Every piece of work is being worked independently. There's no prioritization. There's no involvement from one to the other. There's no assessment of resources and what they're being assigned to. It's all ad hoc. We talked about system dynamics and the feedback loops, right? Are we intentionally capturing feedback from another department about what's the impact of this project on us, or budgeting or finance or all of those items that we're familiar with in the project world? There's no feedback loops that are in place intentionally. They're all there by accident. They may be giving us feedback. We don't even know it's feedback, and we're not taking advantage of that. Why? Because the organization doesn't have the capability. The organization doesn't accept it. I'm on an island by myself, and there's no portfolio of work that's at play. Same with project management, right? At this point, any project management that's being done by any of the individuals within the organization is accidental. They haven't been trained. They're not CAPMs. They're not PMPs. They don't have Prince 2. They don't have any sort of formal certification. And they're doing their part best they can from what their friend told them or what a neighbor told them or a colleague in a different company. They may Google. They may have come out to the PMO squad and downloaded some templates from us. Every day, we're seeing a lot of people download templates from us. We go back and look, and some of them aren't even project managers, right? They're just people looking for a tool to be able to help them do better at what they do because they have no guidance from their organization. And lastly, as we just talked about, the people involved are SMEs, right? Hey, Joe, how's that project going that you're working on? I don't know what you're talking about, Dennis. I didn't even know there was a project, right? So is this familiar, right? These 6 items or 7 items rather that we use as our baseline to qualify where you're at in the journey. And we look at the way we've instructed them here. The folks who said ad hoc, right? When we responded, what stage is your organization in? Does this look familiar, right? Do you feel this? Is this what you have actually going on within your organization right now? And that you're here going, okay, how do I get to the next level? And what does the next level look like? Emelisa says, yeah, that looks like the case for her. You're not alone. So let's look at two, right? Let's make the comparison. That's what one looks like. What does it look like when we go over to standardized, right? This is the migration of an organization's journey. We then take and compare. It's the same qualifying criteria. What is the org structure? Well, in a standardized organization, this is where we start to see PMOs and or dedicated project teams. So people that are in there because of project delivery. They're intentionally in the organization. Capability is now being built across the organization. It's not within the individual anymore. There's a team, right, with the PMO that's building out structure. With that structure, it's building out capability across the organization. Do we have organizational acceptance yet? Not yet. We're getting it in pockets, but we don't see it across the enterprise, right? An example that everybody seems to be aware of and runs into is the PMO may have a structure for resource assignments, and they ask a resource manager to approve a resource request, but the resource manager doesn't approve it. Well, they haven't accepted our process yet. That's how we know it's only in pockets. Organizational portfolio. Yes, but typically we see these within functions as opposed to enterprise in nature, right? The IT portfolio, or maybe the marketing portfolio, manufacturing portfolio. There isn't an enterprise portfolio, but there is a collection of work that's being monitored. So this is definitely progress from where we were at ad hoc. Feedback loops, as we mentioned, they were accidental. Now they're intentional, right? We're seeking feedback. We are going out of our way to be able to accept that feedback, bring it into the structure we've created, and then use that feedback to make adjustments within our structure to ensure we're satisfying the needs of the organization. Doesn't mean we're doing it well. It just means that we're doing it intentional. Project delivery. If you noticed, in ad hoc back in stage one, I called that project management. Here in stage two, we transfer from a project management mindset where we're command and control and managing how the work's done. Here, the focus switches, and the organization is actually attempting to deliver the work. Manage of the project? Sure, of course, that's part of the role of a project manager. But the outcome becomes more important, the delivery of the work. So we're intentionally working to deliver projects for the organization. And then lastly, the people, the most important part. This is where trained project managers are leading those delivery efforts to ensure that the organization is delivering on projects. So for all of those who listed two, hopefully these look familiar. This is probably where your organization is. Also, I think a key point of this is that it isn't like you shift into a room to become two and the walls are boxing you in and you only exist in that room and all of these are qualified. Remember, this is a journey. So maybe of these seven, maybe four of these you've been able to achieve. Well, getting to one of these gets you beyond ad hoc, because beyond ad hoc is just kind of random on everything. If you intentionally start to create these things, you're at the beginning of one and you journey your way through two to eventually you'll get to number three, which we'll talk about in the next webinar. So hopefully this makes sense for everybody who's gone from a one to a two. So you're probably all saying, that's great, Joe. I agree with what you just said. Makes sense. How do I get there? How do I get from accidental to intentional or ad hoc to standardized? Right? There isn't a big parade. There isn't like sirens and cannons go off and it says, hey, we cleared out of one, we're into two. It's more subtle than that. As project professionals, for us, this is where we need to take leadership and be able to guide the organization on the journey, right? We become the tour guide for the organization to help them get where they need to go. So what do we look for when we're trying to make that transition, when we are the people that are involved? No cake and balloons, Nick. I'm sorry. We'll have to go to the zoo. We can get them at the zoo after we've gotten there. Then we can go celebrate there. I don't know why the zoo came up in my mind for cake and balloons, but whatever. So first of all, how do we get there, right? In accidental, we know where we're at. Remember, we just walked through all of those items. So in order to move from accidental to intentional, we need somebody in the organization, in the leadership team, to be our champion that's going to say, light bulb moment. What we're doing in an ad hoc way, in an accidental way, could be better, right? So we need a champion. If you don't have a champion within your leadership team, it's nearly impossible to move out of accidental because it has to be driven from the leadership team. It's such a big change for the organization. It can't be completely grassroots. It just won't stick. It won't be successful. You need a moment, right? Something that spurs the champion to take action. So what does that mean? What is a moment? Well, it could be a project. It could be a person. It could be an event. That event could be a failure. It could be a success. Something that identifies an event where we can bring it to the champion, or a champion could identify it themselves and say, wow, that one project that John used to do, he would have this status report. And I knew every week when he put that out there was fantastic. How come nobody else in our team uses something like that? And that moment triggers a champion to take action. And at the leadership level, they want to go make change. But that takes courage. And for all of you that are in stage one, I would suggest this is a moment in time for you to be able to create that moment. Have the courage to be able to create a moment, to be able to bring to a champion, to be able to show them, right? You're the tour guide. Sometimes the people on the tour need the guide to point out exactly the moment in time that they should be looking for. And do that, you need to be a leader, right? Somebody who's willing to take the fight up and bring the organization with the champion into the next stage of the journey, right? A leader doesn't mean you have to have authority from a position that you have. Leader means you have people who are willing to follow you in the fight. And doesn't you any project delivery leader should be able to do that. And you need a partner, right? Whether it's an internal partner within your organization, like your champion or others, whether it's an external partner like the PMO squad, the bottom line is you're not going to be able to do this by yourself because you're going to need somebody that has influence. You're going to need somebody that has experience. You're going to need support. You're not going to be able to fight this fight by yourself. So you're going to need that partner that's going to be able to help you be the tour guide until the momentum starts building in the organization. And then you have multiple partners from the organization that are going to be on board with you. So accidental to intentional, you need these items, right? These are the things that are going to be able to spur the change within the organization that you're going to need. So what does intentional project delivery look like, right? We looked at 1 and 2, but what do we need for those? So whether or not you have a PMO or you just have project delivery teams, you need somebody who's going to be the leader. Who owns creating the standards in the organization so that there is a designed way to move forward? You can't be standardized without standards. Somebody has to create the standards, and that person will be the leader within that organization for that capability. You need people. So you have to have roles. You don't just have a SME that gets tapped on the shoulder and you say, hey, Joe, how's that project going? Right? That doesn't work anymore. You need to be able to have roles that within HR, there's job descriptions, there's compensation plans, there's career ladders in place. All of that needs to be in place to have a formal role so that you can take and build that capability within the organization. You need tools, right? Project manager has to have things to be able to guide them to deliver projects. So it could be templates, could be software, could be many different things, budget sheets, different things within the organization so that the intentional projects can become repeatable. We need portfolios, right? Because it's not just one project standalone, it's the collection of projects that are working together that helps us understand prioritization, resource needs, evaluation of benefits to the company. The portfolio of work in place allows the team to be able to go execute. a methodology and process. We need to be consistent and we want to be repeatable. You can't do that if you don't have a process or methodologies in place to go do that. And the trick, oh boy, that one happened to move forward fast. The tricky one, executive expectations. As soon as you go from accidental to intentional, there now are expectations on the organization to be better than what we were doing. So that whole part about being courageous we had in the last slide, now expectations come with it. So you're being encouraged to go forward and deliver and be ready for executives to say, this isn't what I thought. I needed more than this. How come we're not better at this? Or congratulations, great job. You guys are doing a fantastic work to be able to deliver this. These are the components that make up what intentional project delivery looks like. Make sense to everybody, hopefully? So these are 30 minutes in time. So we move through these fast, right? So we're basically coming through our time. Questions about the PMO squad. I mentioned who we are. For those who work with us, we've got some of our clients online and folks who know us, you know these things, but full service project management, consulting, staffing, technology, and education. You know, we got the certificates for the different awards we won. That's always fun to be able to brag about those things that our team has been able to accomplish. So questions in the brief amount of time that we have remaining. What questions do any of you have about this? And feedback, right? This is a feedback loop, system dynamics. We want your feedback. Does this make sense for folks that are in one? Does this give you a view into what our organization needs to have to be able to get to stage 2 and what stage 2 looks like? What can I answer for you?
So Nick asks, at what level of management do you typically find it important to get buy-in and have a champion?
I'm a believer that the highest possible level of any organization. So the majority of folks that we find, organizations that we find in phase 1 are smaller organizations. So typically we say go straight to the C-suite, right? The executives, the CEOs, the COOs, folks that are leading those parts of the organization as a whole, I would go immediately up to the top and get a champion within those organizations, that level of the organization. Mike, thanks for the feedback. Raina, yes, thank you for the feedback as well.
Now the questions are moving. In order to get from stage 2 up, one needs to know what know that your projects are aligned to strategy. You did not mention anything about portfolio strategy. I think this is good to cover based on the OPD journey here, Joe. So where does that come in?
Yeah, Shock, good question. That doesn't happen at this level. It's not taking place at stage 2. This, remember, was a conversation about from 1 to 2. You have to come back for future sessions to learn about where does strategy come into play. But you'll see a lot of consultants out on social media who talk about you have to be doing strategy and you have to be doing value creation. If you don't have the elements in place of standardized, you'll never be able to make the connection to strategy. So if you're in 1 or you're in 2 right now, get the fundamentals in place. We'll show you how to get to 3 in the next discussion, and then it sets the stage to get up to acceptance and beyond. But a good question, just not there yet.
Yeah, remember it's a journey.
Yeah.
Where do most organizations fail or struggle in making this move?
The reason why 51% of the organizations from our survey are in 1 or 2 is because it's hard to get out of 2, right? And we'll dig a little more deeper into that. Stage 3 is organizational project delivery, and that means acceptance. So in this one, we said acceptance in pockets, and that one is acceptance across the organization. So the struggle is, how do I get to be so good and we are so trusted as a project delivery team that my organization is investing in us through acceptance to be able to get us beyond 3 or into 3 and beyond. So the struggle isn't really 1 to 2. That generally is fairly easy. The struggle is the amount of time it takes within two to get that resource manager to approve your request, right? There are organizations that have been in stage 2 for 50 years because they can't get the organization to accept everything. So 2 is kind of that's the hardest one to get out of. It's the most effort to get out of 2. Great question, Diane.
Yeah, great question. I know we are at time, so I just want to be conscious of that. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I did put a link to the PMO Squad's LinkedIn page. Joe teased the next one of this, where we'll talk about standardized to organizational project delivery, kind of based on that last question. I think that'll be a good one to cover. But go follow us there to get the link to that when we start promoting that event. But thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This is being recorded, and you'll get that recording in your inbox probably yet today. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day and weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.